And we are recording.
Hello.
Jono.
Hello.
John Smallman. That's your full name, right?
That is my real name, correct.
Your legal name.
Yeah, that is my...
Apologies if that cat starts getting annoying. He just loves to
love it.
Get in the background.
I mean, there's a joke there somewhere. This is the closest I've been to in a very long time.
Shit.
Yeah.
26 seconds in
Yep,
and
told
we're
you.
already in the innuendos. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, look, obviously I'm not a native Australian with my accent.
I couldn't tell.
I grew up in Birmingham.
Birmingham.
So, you know, some great things came from there. Obviously, the Smallman name.
Yeah.
But, you know, Duran Duran, Ozzy Osbourne, UB40,
Yeah.
Cadbury's chocolate, some of my favorite things. But yeah, I grew up in Birmingham, and from an early age, I was, you know, jumping out behind the curtains with my brother and sister as dancers. So I was choreographing routines.
Right.
And I think the first one was to Thriller, Michael Jackson. So
Yeah.
I just choreographed the routine and do like a lot of that. And I think my parents got sick of it. So they were like, we just need to send him to some sort of theater school, like drama school or something like that.
He's taking up too much of the lounge space. We'll just push him into another area.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was like, it became full on. And I was very creative as a child, creating like scenarios for me, my brother and sister to play in. Like we created characters and all that kind of stuff. So I've always had a very vivid imagination. So yeah, look, went to a drama school called the Betty Fox Stage School, which was quite a prestigious little sort of part-time stage school, and became a bit of a theatre brat. And
Hang on. There's so much to unpack in that dialogue. Where are you in the hierarchy of your siblings?
so I'm the eldest.
Oh, you're the eldest.
I am. So yeah, that's my camera. What I say goes. I'm watching you both.
Yeah, hang on. We can't see that screen. Hang on a second.
Is it a good job? There we go. Yeah.
That's better. You can see it now. Right.
So yeah, my sister is in the middle and my brother is the youngest.
Right. So your parents were kind of like, he's too much. He's influencing the other two. We're going to send him to a theatre school.
If that's not a red flag to say homo, you know, I don't know. I'm not saying that everyone that goes to theatre school is a homosexual, but
No.
no, but look, there were other things. Like I really loved Kylie from an early age. So it's like, hello, did you not know then that I was like at 8, 9 years old? But anyway, that's another story. So yeah, I went to theatre school, and then I started getting roles, auditions. I'd have to be sent to auditions and then taken out of school, like real school, and then
Academic school.
Yeah, and then schooled sort of in the theatre, like with chaperones and things like that. So I was doing, I think my first show was The Wizard of Oz, which is now a musical touring around England and stuff like that. But I was, you know, child chorus, but I was, you know, I had to go and have all the fittings. And then I was in a show, like for a run for like months.
Yeah.
And people were paying to come and see us. And it was an adult cast. And I was just one of the children in it. But like, yeah, it was my first thing. And then I had a few more shows that I did. And then
what was that like, kind of, because like you started off like doing theatrical stuff like with your siblings and at home whilst you're going to like primary school and like secondary school or whatever, and then your parents kind of saying, oh shit, like we need to like give him an outlet.
Yeah. So
after school you would go. But what was that like? What was the dynamic like at home when you started doing that?
Oh, I mean, it's such a long time ago. But yeah, it was fine. My parents were always very supportive.
Yeah.
I can't remember my siblings not liking that I was in these shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd go on a weekend, and eventually when I got a bit old enough, I after doing those shows, I hit puberty, and so didn't really do any shows, book any shows for a little while whilst my voice was changing and things.
Yeah.
And then I kind of changed drama school and went to a part-time, more sort of focused on drama, so acting, called the Birmingham School of Speech and Drama. So I went there and I started getting, working on like accents and dialects and things like that, and monologues and audition processes and stuff like that. So it was really cool. So I went from kind of being like a, you know, on Annie, Broadway kind of, to like then serious thespian acting.
I'm trying not to react.
I know. I'm sorry. And so, yeah, then went into acting. And then, while so then I was at high school, I was doing a lot of, actually my high school became a center for performing arts. So it's got a huge dance studios and performing arts sort of course that you can do. And so, yeah, and then I went on to do, I went to college and did performing arts there, which is, I think that was a 3-year course or 2-year course. And then did sort of directing and then stage management and all that kind of stuff. And then went on to full-time drama school for 3 years rather than go to university. I decided to go to a drama, like a full-on. And that was like, if you've ever seen Fame or something, like it was literally like that. And anyone out there that knows what that's like. So your first class is a ballet class, and then you've got contemporary, and then we had fencing. So we had I learned how to fence with a foil, parry, riposte, and all those little terminologies and all those fencing.
Jeff Weber will understand this because he was a fencer.
Jeff, hi. Yes, that's all I remember. I can't remember what grade I got to, but it was great fun. And just sort of like stage combat and did all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the first.
Was we spoke about it briefly before, but like, what was the influence for you kind of doing like theater type stuff? Like,
I don't know. I've always been a very sort of, out there, creative. Yeah. And I think it comes from my dad, Alan. Hi, Alan G. Who
shout out to
Alan G. Smallman. In South Australia, they're all over here now. My family. Oh. Yeah, I know.
Not in Birmingham.
No, we didn't leave them. They left me behind.
Oh,
they emigrated and sent me a postcard. They said, "Oh, by the way, we've emigrated. We'll see you at Christmas." I was like, "What?" No, they didn't really. They didn't.
It's a rude awakening.
They said, "Oh yeah, we've moved." No, I knew they were going, and then my brother came over, and then my sister came over, and then they all stayed, and then it was like, I better go over.
And so they're all in Adelaide.
So actually, my sister's here in Melbourne, and my brother and his fiance are in Adelaide with my mum and dad and the dogs. And then my sister married, so my brother-in-law here in Melbourne, and I have a niece who's 3. So and she's also a bit creative. So and my sister, but I can get to that. But so yeah, look, that's how I kind of got here.
Yeah.
Well, in a longabout, is that even a word? In a kind of roundabout. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Thank you.
So your dad's the creative.
Oh, that was what I was talking about, wasn't it? So your dad was is a musician, but we used to go to like gigs in the 80s, and I'd see him get up there with this band that he was in. I think it was called Atlantic Run. And they would, do some really cool gigs. It wasn't just like little gigs. They were like really big, and there was hundreds of people, and we'd be dancing, and it would just be really cool. Or even it might just be like a social club around the corner, So Dad was always a musician, and my uncle was in that band as well, I think. And I just remember it so vividly. Like it was great. Like me and my sister would be dancing. So I kind of think that's where the influence came from.
Yeah.
And that wasn't his full-time gig either. Dad was like a building services manager and stuff at a polytechnic, a music school.
I think it's so interesting. Like every single person that I've had on the podcast has had a creative outlet and then like a muggle job.
I love that you said muggle.
It's like
a normal job.
Yeah, like an ordinary, like boring job, and like it fuels the passion to be creative. And then everyone's like, oh, I wish I could do the creative stuff like full time, But then even then, I think like there would be a proportion or percentage of any job that you don't like doing. Like for me, like the creative stuff's great, like the podcast's great, but then I know I got to spend some time doing the editing,
Yeah.
And I love the editing, but I'm at a point now where I love it so much that I know how to do it. I can just do it with my eyes closed. Like there's not much fun in that anymore. Like the fun is in this conversation.
I love conversation. That's why I love this podcast and this platform. I think it's a really, just by the way, great. It's not just an idea. You've done it on a level where it's like it's intimate, it's conversational, and I love having conversations, as you could probably tell.
9 minutes and 41 seconds in. No, could not tell.
Oh my gosh. It's also a Sunday afternoon. I haven't spoken to a real person for all of, I don't know, a few hours. No, I'm joking. Since yesterday.
So your parents decided they were going to immigrate here,
Correct.
and then you followed.
Yes, I was the last to come over.
Yeah.
And I just kind of started working in the travel industry again. It was easy. It was something that I just liked to do in South Australia. And, I was in Australia. I thought, well, get around cheap travel and stuff like that. But I lasted 4 months in that job because then I needed, if I wanted to stay, I needed sponsorship. So I then got sponsorship to work at a hotel, which was great. It's the most money I'd ever made at that point in my life. I thought, wow, the salaries here are just so incredible compared to back home in the lovely UK.
Birmingham.
In Birmingham. So look, I worked in a hotel, but that's where then I started getting the spark back after a bit of a hiatus for so many years, maybe 15, 20 years of like entertainment. And that sounds weird because I'm working in a hotel in South Australia, but part of the job was to look for business within the entertainment and sports space and sort of bid for that. And I was like, how does that work? And
hang on, what do you mean bid for it?
so like when an artist or a tour comes to say Adelaide or Melbourne, in a hotel, I want them to stay with me. So then I would find out who their promoter or their agent is or their travel agent and be like, well, this is the rate I can give you. This is what I'm going to include. I want you here. And it's done in like A party, B party, C party, D party. The A party is the celebrity. The B party is like their team and so on and what have you in the crew. But if you get them all staying there, it's a huge revenue stream if it's direct business for the hotel. So I started getting involved in that and I made it my niche. And like having a background in theatre, I was then meeting Sir Richard O'Brien. Like, I call him Sir. I don't know if he's actually a Sir, but Richard O'Brien with the Rocky Horror Show. And he starred in the movie. He wrote it. And we got on famously, and he's like, darling, what's my schedule? And I was like, well, Richard, it's tomorrow's opening night, And I found myself doing that more than the actual manager or agent that was there with him.
It's probably because of your ability to build that relationship with him so quickly, and you got along really well that he almost trusted you more than the person that was supposed to be doing that.
Yeah. And I think that's what I'm really good at. If I'm to say that I'm good at, I'm a connector of people. And I think we'll come to that after when I talk about another thing. But I'm definitely a connector of people and I build rapport easily and effortlessly. And it's natural. It's not false. I have no poker face. So if, there's a bad smell in the room or something, I'm just like, oh God, it's really hard for me not to like be honest, and I've got to stop being too honest. But so I was looking after people like Richard.
I don't think you should listen to your own advice on that point. I think you should just be honest.
Yeah, look, I am most of the time, but it's how I deliver it. Sometimes I can be quite reactive, but I'm learning as I get older just be like, do they need to know that? Maybe probably not. But anyway, so look, I got into the industry in this way, and I started making connections. Richard O'Brien was lovely, and he said, like, bring some of your mates along. I'll meet them. I'll sign autographs, have pictures. So we went to see the show, and I actually took a load of corporate clients and some of my mates at the time, and they couldn't believe they were meeting Sir Richard O'Brien. But then it went from there. I met like a lot of the younger people watching might not know who these people are, but like Helen Reddy was a legend. And I met Helen Reddy. She sings I Am Woman is one of her many songs, but if anyone younger is watching, that's what you might know. And she said, are you coming to my show tonight, John? And I said, oh, Helen, I'd love to. I'm double booked. I'm going to see the Hilltop Hoods tonight. And she was like, oh, I don't know who they are. I was like, well, they're an Aussie hip. I was like, oh my gosh. And I because at the time I was actually working with the Hilltop Hoods, even though they're from Adelaide. They were staying with us, or their band or their crew was staying with us, and I got to know them more. And that eventually ended up where I was then with them in Perth at the side of stage at the Eminem gig, and they were supporting Eminem, and that's how that relationship grew. And look, relationships come and go. Yeah, like I know it's crazy. I've had some really.
Who are you?
These great like experiences along the way with all these artists, actors, performers. I found myself, and I was new to Australia, so I didn't know who half these people were, like Todd McKinney or Ricky Lee. I was like, I have no idea who you are. Rob Mills, sorry, Rob, even though I love you. and I was meeting all these people, like having drinks with them, having coffee and just having a chat. And that's what it's about. It's that connection, that engagement, and making them feel comfortable, especially when they get to a hotel. But that opened a lot of doors for me.
I think it's so fascinating. I didn't really consider the role of bidding for, a performer or a celebrity to kind of like stay at the hotel, like that as a role.
Yeah.
But I suppose it is really about sales, and it is really about revenue generation. And whilst there is a salesy component to it, it's how you go about delivering it.
Exactly.
It's how you go about making that connection.
Yeah.
It's how you go about influencing people to consider, your venue and all of that. And you obviously did that really well to be able to make those relationships work.
Yeah. It was a sales role, but I had a corporate and government aspect to that as well. And I was fine doing that, but where I really excelled and I had that connection with, it took me back to that when I was in theater or I was doing that kind of stuff, was they're just people and they need to stay somewhere. I'm not selling like the 5-star Sofitel or the Ritz, because the Sofitel wasn't there at the time. But I was selling an experience, and they had to feel comfortable with me. And that got to a point when I was welcoming Dita Von Teese. I was talking with her in the lift, and she had some advice for me when she left, because I said, look, I'm actually being taken out. That's another story, but I'm being taken out of this job on some annual leave, and a promoter wants me to work on tour with them. And so that's then how it started to develop, that relationship. And apparently Dita, I remember her rolling back on the driveway of the hotel. Her assistant got out. She's like giggling in the back. Like that. She was very giggly. And she really didn't tell you anything directly. And her assistant came out and she went, oh, look, Dita's got some advice for you. If you're going on tour, don't take anyone to the Pancake Parlor in Adelaide, because it's fucking shit. And I was like, great. And I looked, and Dita's like crying with laughter in the back of her car. And he walks off and he goes, good luck. And then I was like, great. Like, if that's what Dita wants to tell me, absolutely fine. So I subsequently, I never said to anyone to go to the Pancake Kitchen, because I did hear that it wasn't very good.
So you mentioned then about, yes, it was a sales role, but you were providing or selling the experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing for people to consider and not discard, is how you make people feel is how they will remember you. And so when you're in a sales role, or in when you're building relationships, people will always remember you based on how you made them feel.
And that is exactly what I have on my arm in a tattoo. And it says, I will make you remember me. And that's kind of, it's not narcissistic. I just think I make people remember me, and it's a positive thing. It's a good thing, but I don't know why I had it there. And it was just something I had written at the time in Old English Latin. I don't know why, but it's true. And that really, like I said, opened doors for me. And then I went on tour, but I also had this, and up until sort of just after COVID, I went to see him recently, but the relationship was better before COVID. But every time Boy George was over, I would be there with him. I'd be invited to Miss Collins's, this is going back a bit, but their 3rd birthday party in Melbourne, and he was DJing, and it was like, what are you doing tonight? Are you coming down to the party? Yes, sure. You're on the guest list. And that was an awkward experience, because I hate it when you have to go, oh, I'm on the guest list. And I rocked up at Miss Collins, and this, at this point, I was doing a lot of stuff, like going to see George at a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I went and rocked up. And, it was his people more than he saw me. He knew who I was, and he'd be like, hey, but like his people like, just come down and we'll hang out and stuff like that. And I went to the event, and she was like, what's your name? And I said, oh, it's John Smallman. And she went, oh no, you're not on the list. And I was like, oh God, it's like one of those moments where you just scrounge, sorry, please, this is so embarrassing.
The left hand, then talking to the right hand.
Jesus Christ. And she went, who are you a guest of again? And I was like, Boy George? She went, oh no, that's a separate list. And then she just whacked out this other list, and she said, oh, there you are. And then like escorted me in. I got handed,
awkward situation, diverted.
She's like, yeah, go. Handed me all this champagne. She's like, there's a free bar. You can go anywhere you want. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was like at the height. That was like, I was doing things like that weekly and just hanging out. So like I was making these connections and having these great experiences, And I was I'm very humble in that way. You know, I respect these people and think, you know, these things can be stopped at any moment. But I just think it's been, I loved it because it took me back to that and it drove a bit more passion. It kind of excited me again to be somehow, I don't know how at that point when I was in Adelaide, but to be involved in not just the music industry, but the entertainment. I was looking after ballet companies, you know, theater companies, dancers, actors, TV personalities, singers, bands. But for some reason, I just got on with a lot of artists and musicians, and we just chatted about, you know, being a backing vocalist for this person, or, you know, looked after Macy Gray like a couple of times. It's just insane.
I'm scared to ask.
Oh,
But,
go on. Tell me.
Did you ever look after Diddy?
No. No.
Thank God.
No, but I think they stayed over the road at another hotel to where I was in Adelaide.
There wouldn't have been enough baby oil.
Yeah, oh, gee whiz. No, I think Beyonce was over there as well. So we just like, I don't know, we got some great, I loved the people that I looked after.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want the Rihannas and the Beyoncés because you have to go through a lot of
red tape.
Yeah, like a lot of stuff. Like the security comes in, they do a sweep of the floor. We had Neil Diamond, and I looked after Burt Bacharach, which he was a legend.
Wow.
Burt was so lovely. I've got some of his handwritten notes that he left in the hotel room.
Who's been the most touching person towards you, like memorable? Not famous, but like most memorable that really kind of like humbled you?
I think there's a couple. You know, I've had great experiences with them all, but I'd actually say Elijah Wood, the actor. And also I was a big fan of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Hey, John, how are you?" And I was like, "Hey, Elijah." Because he said to me at first, "Call me Elijah," because he came under like a fake name. And I was like, "Hello, Mr. Smith, welcome."
Yeah.
And this was when I was in Perth. So I then moved to Perth before COVID and lived there a few years. So again, I was in a role, but in for this like boutique hotel, and so it was a little bit more fitting. And this family had money to spend, so they owned the hotel, and I was there like looking after their sales. And so Elijah came down, and he said, "Just call me Elijah." And he was like, "John, where is there a pie shop?" So I was like, "Oh, I'll show you. I'll take you to the local pie shop." And then you just kind of like go one step further. And so Elijah was really, really lovely. And like I'd bump into him in the lobby and he's like, "We got to stop meeting like this." Like I was like, "I know, I'm so sorry. I do work here. I'm not stalking you. Like, I actually work in the hotel." Because it was
I've got a name badge. It says the hotel name. So, you know, it's like.
It was an 85-room hotel. So there wasn't much, you know.
There wasn't like wearing a hoodie and black sunglasses.
But the other one I would say was Billie Eilish. She was the nicest. And I think I broke the ice in a way that made her feel so relaxed. And at that point, she wasn't hundreds of millions. I think she had 25 million followers at that point on Insta. But she was still a big deal. And she came with Phineas, and his partner and her whole family. And as I said, it wasn't a huge hotel. So if you were in the property and you saw Billie Eilish, you'd see her. So she was just really humbling, and I just said, "Okay." And at the time, I just wanted it because they looked very similar. They did, honestly. Billie and her sister-in-law, if that's what you would call her, looked very similar. And so I was like, "Okay, so which one's Billie?" And I kind of knew it. I kind of knew it was Billie, like to the left, but I just didn't want to. And instantly, she just burst out laughing.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, and she was like, "That's me." And I was like, "Oh, great, cool." Just wanted to double check. You know, you never know. You could be like trying to confuse me, like to make me look something. Yeah. Like, no. So I took her to the suite, and then she came down. She's like, "Dude, like, where'd you get those peas?" And I got like these baked chili peas from Coles, but I put them in this huge hamper of local produce, all vegan, veggie, and all this stuff. And she loved it. And she's like, "Oh my God." And she came over and she gave me the hug. And she's like, "Dude, I love these." Like, man, her dad was so lovely. He was so humbling. And, you know, her mom was just lovely. And her mom was constantly filming. So I think I was in some sort of documentary with Billie. I don't even know. I've tried to Google it. But it was like, and they were lovely. They were really nice. And I think she's at the top of her game at the moment, or she's been for a long time.
Yeah, she has.
But I've had so many experiences, and people out there, and if anyone's listening or watching this, they'll be like, "Oh, here he goes, give me that story." You know, like my brain's constantly going, it reminds me, and that's what music and things do. It reminds me of a story. Yeah, it reminds me of a time.
I think for me, listening to you talk right now just proves that at the end of the day, like these celebrities, these famous musicians, they're all just real people.
People, yeah.
They're all just people, like, kind of doing their thing, and yeah, they've reached some sort of celebrity status for the music or, performances and stuff. But at the end of the day, they're all just normal people wanting normal things and wanting a great experience wherever they go.
Yeah.
And to come in contact with someone like you that provides them that, like, that's probably a godsend for them because they're like, oh, fantastic.
It's
like
refreshing.
We found someone who's like not a stalker or like that just have a joke or have a laugh, you know, like, When
I first met Boy George, and he arrived at the hotel, my brother was actually over from Melbourne. So we've switched. And he was in the corner waiting for me in the darkest part of the hotel. You couldn't really see him. And I was welcoming Boy. I said, just hide over there. Like, you can, but just don't make yourself seen, because I've got to welcome Boy George. And my brother, I think, was a bit curious. Not sexually, by the way. Like, he's completely straight. But he was curious in terms
music-wise.
Yeah. Curious of, like, just to see Boy George arriving. And I was like,
he wasn't bi-curious.
No.
He was just curious.
And George arrived, and I was like, hi, George, welcome to the hotel. My name's John. I'm here to look after you. I'll take you to your room. I'm also a POM as well. He went, a plumber? And I went, no, not a plumber, a POM. That's what Aussies call us. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay. And he gets in the lift, but he did a quick glance like that and walked to the lift. And he'd already seen my brother. And we're in the lift, and this is like straight away peak rapport. Boy George goes, who was that in the corner? I went, oh, that was my brother. I said, sorry, he's waiting for me. He's bought a car over. We're selling a car, whatever. He went, is he gay? I went, no, George, he's straight. I'm the gay one. And he was like, oh, it will be after 3 pints or something like that. Like, and he goes, yeah, he said, give me your phone. So George is scrolling through my phone, looking at my brother's Facebook, and that's how it started. And so I had a room in the hotel where I brought in koalas and rescue animals. And I said to him, if you want to go down, there's a room with refreshments, but I've also arranged these animals for you. And he goes, oh, I've done it all before, babe, I've done it all before.
Right.
But his 2 assistants at the time, one of them now is a very huge stylist for people like Lionel Richie and stuff like that, and John Legend. And they were like, oh, George, can we? Come on. And he goes, all right, wait there. And so I'm in the presidential suite with Boy George and these 2 people. And I said, do you want me to wait? Like, he said, yes, you wait there. And I was like, oh, okay. He goes, I just got to do a quick face. So he goes, puts a little bit of makeup on him. Then he puts his recognizable big Boy George hat on. He goes, right, I'm ready. I don't have to have photos though, do I? And I was like, no, you don't have to have photos. They can if you want, but I know I can take them for you, but there's no photographer in there or anything like that. It's all just on your phones if you want to do it. He goes, all right, I'm ready. And then we went down and we went into this like lounge, and all these backing singers that were from England and America, and his crew were there, and they all had pictures. And I've got this wonderful picture that I took, but I didn't post it obviously for a very, very long time, but it was a black and white one. And it was, there was like a Joey on the floor, and Boy George got his hat on, and he's just like, he's laughing because the Joey came up to him. And I think like Roy Hay was next to him, and it's just a really candid shot. And it was really cool. So I love doing all that, but that's, those people and the promoters, they never forgot that experience. And that is actually, I think, it's been about 10 years. And I, caught up with them at the last concert when he came out recently, or the end of last year, whenever it was, at Rod Laver, I don't know. And it's always very late. They always go, oh, come down to the event. And I was like, the last one I decided to pay. I was like, because you get free tickets and things like that. It's not all guaranteed. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to pay for this experience and give something back. And this is where it started. So I paid for this whole VIP experience. And in the end, I didn't really need it, because they said, come and say hi again. But I wanted to pay for it. I didn't want to look like a
freeloader. Yeah.
And that's what I try and do every now and again. Like, I just bought my Cardi tickets, by the way. I'm really excited. Yeah.
We're going to Travis Scott and Coldplay.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. Look at your taste in music. You're a much cooler vibe. I'm just like cheesy pop. I'm like Kylie Minogue, yes, please. But then you come out with Andrew comes out with Travis Scott and Coldplay. They are great artists, though. That's a great band.
I wasn't. We weren't going to go, and then I was like, fuck it, like
do it.
Just why not?
Live music is where it's at.
Yeah. I think like during COVID, like obviously like everything stopped, but once things started up again, and like artists started coming back to Australia, like you see these ads for like these concerts, and you're like, should I not? You know what? You should. Yeah. because like you don't know when they're going to come back. Like Australia is such a small, big island, like isolated from
Small big island. I love it.
from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you never know when they're going to come back. Like,
Exactly.
Mm.
I guess. I mean, I recently went to Belinda Carlisle as well, so nostalgic.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved it, and she looks
That's
amazing.
old school.
Yeah, and she sounds fantastic.
Mm.
But I just, I realize she's in her, I think her mid-60s, and I don't know if she's going to come back.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go there, and I was actually going to be doing some work for the promoter.
Yeah.
Which I think all it was is he wanted me to, be like an assistant, production assistant or whatever, and run an errand, maybe pick them up from the airport and drive it down to the Palais or whatever. And I was like, look, I've done that before, but I am actually working my full-time job, as well as then trying to run this event side of the.
Did you ever meet Michael Jackson?
No, but I know people that did.
I had Stick Maribo on the podcast.
Wow.
And he was like telling me the whole story about how when he was DJing commercial radio and they got him to present Michael Jackson with his co-host the key to Melbourne City.
No way.
And I'm like,
that's insane. I mean, that just trumps anything.
I should have done my research on my guests.
Michael Jackson.
I had no idea who Stick Maribo was.
Wow.
And then I told my chiropractor, he was like, and then the person next to him, like the client next to him, he was like, Stick Maribo, oh, I remember him.
Does he still present on radio or what's he?
No, he doesn't. So he runs the Jamaican Festival.
Nice.
He does a few DJ gigs and stuff like that. But then they this year they did their first. So the Jamaican Festival has been running for 8 years in Williamstown at Science Works. This year, and it was the first time they did it, but they're doing it a second time next year. A Caribbean Festival at Fed Square.
Yeah, nice.
So he was the one that organised that this year, and they had such a great turnout that they asked him back.
Fabulous.
So
I love that.
I think that's in Feb or March. Yeah.
Nice.
So.
I love that. Look, MJ would have been great. I think I mean, one of the pop groups that I hung out with a couple of times is S Club. And now they're doing, they're back together. There's a 5, I think, because Paul, bless him, passed away. But then Hannah didn't want to be in the band again. So it's kind of like there's 5 of them left.
You're really into the pop.
I love pop. It's just cheesy. Like, it's my guilty pleasure. But I also love hip hop and R&B. And I'm like, and there's another story I'm going to tell you there as well. But anyway, oh my God, it's going to be so embarrassing. People watching. I'm not just name dropping. I am involved in.
Well, I mean, you did just name drop Hilltop Hoods and like Eminem. So
they got me into trouble. I'll tell you about this. About what? But Tina from S Club told me we went shopping somewhere a couple of times. Every time me and Tina have caught up, she's like, "I need to go shopping," and so I take Tina Barrett shopping, and we just go shopping. It's crazy. And so she's like, I said, tell me about, and I interviewed her on Instagram. Tell me about like the most pinch yourself moment that you've ever had. And she's like, well, I think watching Michael do sound check. And I was like, Michael? She's like, yeah, Jackson. I was like, oh, okay. Wow. But then fast forward years later, and I'm side of stage with the Jackson 5 on stage. And I kind of just froze. And also I wasn't allowed to move, but I had to just stand there. And they were like right there doing their thing. And then they all walked past me, like right there. And I was like, oh my God, that's like how many degrees of separation? That's like, they're Michael Jackson's siblings. And years before that, Tito, God rest his soul, just passed away, but he did a soundbite for me through someone that I knew in the industry for The Biz with Jono. And he's like, hey, you're listening to The Biz with Jono. And I've been so blessed with all that kind of stuff.
It's so cool.
So basically that long around story was all via hotels. And all those, I went on tour as an artist liaison / kind of assistant tour manager for the Totally 80s tour in 2016. And we were talking with Martika, Berlin, Katrina and the Waves, Lamal.
My sister would be like Googling right now.
She would love it.
Talk all of this.
Real life, Dave Sterry sang Semi and Angel. Like, that was his big hit. Men Without Hats, Wawani with the Australian other band. And it was it's like wrangling cats. It was like, all these artists, getting them from city to city and then being on the other side, arriving at a hotel that's booked for me. So it really added another string to my bow to sort of kind of be on a tour to that level. Then we were going to like Channel 9 and Channel 7. They were doing live chats, radio interviews with commercial radio stations. And
what advice would you give your younger self if you were to meet the younger Jono?
I'd say listen more.
Mm.
Again, I can talk, but I think I've learned to listen and take it in and then make a decision or have a conversation. I was really young and I was all about like, oh my God, I had a great time and I was always very professional. And I remember Terry Nunn from Berlin, take my breath away, people, saying to the promoter, Jono's worth his weight in gold. And I'm very heavy now, so I'm very expensive. However, I really did. Like when I do something, I do it properly and I look after people. And they didn't want for anything. Like they had their water where it needed to be. I went above and beyond. They wanted to go and sing in, I think it was the Rest Point Casino in Hobart, and two of the band members of Berlin wanted to go on and carry on a party, and they got up on stage and played with a house band. Apparently one of them, they were in the Goo Goo Dolls like years before. Like, so it's just having those conversations and just, but my advice would be just to listen, calm down, listen and take it in more and enjoy the experience, enjoy the moment. And.
So do you feel like you didn't listen as much like when you were younger? You were just too busy kind of like getting stuff done and like talking and like directing people?
Yeah, maybe. And I think you just get wiser, and I'm a lot wiser as I've got older. And I think I've just been more, I just don't suffer fools easy anymore either. I've come a bit short about that. And like if I hear an excuse about not being able to come to something or not being able to make it because something's going on, I'm just like, I call bullshit. I'm sorry. I don't have time for that. Get out. Like, I don't want to hear it. So I think, yeah, I used to just sort of talk and not ask questions. And
I think all of that comes with experience.
Yes.
Like if you've seen it many times before, you can then recognize it earlier.
Yeah.
You can see the red flags earlier.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you can feel things are going great and they're going the way that they should be, then you just kind of like let it go and let it flow,
Yeah. As Adina said, let it go.
Isn't that a Frozen song as well?
It is. Look, you can tell actually, I can't use my niece as an excuse. I just love Frozen too. I love musical theatre. I love Disney. Come on. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? And if you don't, you're a psycho.
Your favourite Disney show?
Kill. My favorite Disney movie, there were some of the classics. And now they've obviously bought Marvel. I love Marvel. Don't even get me started on Marvel.
Yeah.
I love the Marvel movies, all the cinematic universes, all the spin-offs. I watch them all. However, when we're talking Disney, classic Disney, I do love Frozen, but I love The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. I love Lumiere, the character, or I love Chip, or I love, Sebastian the Crab, Ariel. I love those. Just like it's just fun. It was a fun movie to watch.
I think it's interesting how Disney bought Marvel, but Disney also bought Lucas Arts and Star Wars.
Don't even go there. I love Star Wars too.
And I don't know. Like, have you watched Dune?
Funny you should say that. I watched Dune 1 again last week because I couldn't remember it. And I wanted to watch it again before I watched the second part, which I'm probably going to do tonight.
Yeah. So what's interesting is Dune is actually, because there's like the conspiracy or the theory around is Dune was actually supposed to be what Star Wars was supposed to be like.
Oh, wow.
Dark and like, these undertones and all of this. But I think George Lucas and his team decided to make it more marketable, to the industry, and it became more like Mickey Mousey.
Yeah.
And then when Disney bought it, well, then that's just
a bit cleaner now.
Yeah.
There is an element of clean to it.
And it's not as dark and mysterious and, like.
That's what makes it good.
Yeah.
Like, I loved all that. So, yeah, I grew up on all of that 80s, 90s nostalgia. in terms of music and movies. I love it all. It's a creative thing, and even in my full-time role at the moment, I find myself prospecting industry people in movie producers, line producers. I was at a networking event recently, and I met the director that did all the Wolf Creek movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's the director.
That's some scary shit.
Well, I've met John Jarrett as well, and he was really, really, like, he was in character. I kind of asked for it, but the director of Wolf Creek, and he's doing a brand new movie here in Victoria, and it's the brand new Exorcist movie.
Oh, wow.
So he's going to be responsible for that. There's a guy he's working with from interstate, but they're going to be filming it or shooting it here on location in Victoria.
Well, that's good that they're using Victorian resources and they don't go to Queensland.
Yeah, a lot of it is there, but they're trying to do a lot of it here as well in Victoria. So that's cool. But yeah, I met John Jarrett years ago, and it was just after COVID, I think. So it was years. And I said, great name, by the way, John. And he was like, yeah, you too, mate. And what did he do? He said, I can't touch you, but I'd fucking kill you. Like, he said like that, and it was really scary. And he wrote on my poster, like,
bro, do you know I'm from Adelaide?
Yeah. I know.
More serial killers per capita.
I know.
That they know of.
He wrote, to John, go fuck yourself, John. I was like, great. That is on my wall with all my other memorabilia in my music room, entertainment room, whatever you want to call it. And it's just like the best poster ever.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, I just love it. So
I think that just goes to show the level of character that you have, and that people just resonate with it and they can get it, and like they're not afraid to like,
oh my gosh,
just say it how it is,
I've just thought about what I was going to, like, you mentioned, you was like, you just name drop the Hilltop Hoods.
Yeah.
So I used to go to parties with them often, or wherever they. Yeah, I know, right? So there's a couple
they're so good.
They are amazing.
I
love the boys.
They were like the pioneers for Australian hip hop.
When I first met them, they gave me a pass at this. I don't think it was Future Music Festival. We went to that a couple of years later, but I was in Adelaide. I think it was their own home gig, and it wasn't as massive at that point. I didn't know who they were. The promoter or their tour manager said, come down to the gig. I'll give you a pass. Just don't go in that room until this time. And I was like, okay, sure.
It's a weird request.
I know. Well, it was their dressing room.
Right.
And their family room. But I just found myself going in there. After a couple of beers, I was in there, or whatever, vodkas, I can't remember. And I was like, oh, this is nice. Wow. And they were like, hi. And I was like, hi. And they're like, who are you? And I was like, oh, I'm John O. Like, yeah. I said, who are you? And they were like, we're the Hilltop Hoods. And that's kind of like how my introduction to them, like, and they were like, they would swear at me, and the management were like, what are you doing, fuckhead, tonight, whatever. So yeah, look, that's how I got involved. But I went to this party with them, and it was with another lady who's an Australian actress called Abby Cornish. And so there was the Hilltop Hoods, there's Abby, and there was me. And we went to this after show party because she was supporting Nas. So I was there in the inner circle of this nightclub in Adelaide, and Nas walks in with all his security team. And I know who Nas is. I'm not stupid. I'm old enough. It might not be my cup of tea in terms of music. I do like hip hop, R&B and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I know he's a legend.
Yeah.
And he walks in and he comes up to me and he goes, hey, gives that like the bro kind of hug.
Yeah.
Wow. And then he kind of went over, and I was like, this is so sick. I'd already had lunch that day with Abby Cornish talking about, friends that she has that are actors, and like Heath Ledger, and hearing about how he used to be. And I just, again, conversational. It was just so cool. And I remember taking my iPhone out at the time, and I think it was an iPhone 5C. That's how it was a while ago. And I wasn't filming it or taking pictures of Nas or anything, but I just thought it was hilarious that there were all these women here showing their, bits to get it signed. And I just thought, how pathetic. And like the reaction of them, I just thought it was very candid, and I wanted to capture that. So I took my phone out, I took a picture of them, and I put it back in my pocket. Within seconds, there was this huge man, leaning over me. He was like, can I see your phone? I was like, yes, please take my phone. And I gave him my phone, and he was like, nah, you got to delete those. And I was like, sure. It's just of the crowd anyway. So he deleted them. I said, oh, I'm so sorry about that. And he goes, no one ever apologizes. Like, who are you? And I was just so polite about it, which again broke down a barrier and just made him laugh. I said, oh, look, I'm learning as I'm going to these events and things, and how the industry works. And now I'm very aware of that. This is like one of the first times I'd have been to like a party like that with someone like Nas.
Yeah, a legendary person.
Legends. So, you know, I've learned now I don't whack out my phone without permission or, you know, and it took me, the last time I met Macy Gray, I wanted to have a picture with her like the first time, but I never asked. It's not about pictures and stuff, but I look, me and Macy went for lunch. We had Argentinian food. We had a rapport. Then we went back to her dressing room and she pulls out the weed and, you know, the rest is history. Like, you know, we're just sat round having a great time and I don't smoke. But at that occasion, I was like, oh, you know, okay, great.
What do you do?
What do you do?
It's Macy Gray.
And she's like, we got to smoke all this weed before we leave. Like, and I was like, oh my God, you know, fantastic. You know, it is illegal in Australia, by the way, Macy. But, so look, I was young and naive, but, you know, now I would be like, Macy, may I? So I got invited to go meet her last time and we chatted and I don't know if she could remember me or not. We just had a conversation about that gig that we first met at 10 years ago in Adelaide. And then I said, look, before I go, would it be possible just to mark this occasion with a photograph? And it's just the way I asked it. And she was just like, sure, yeah. We just had loads of like, you know, a screen, load of burst. Is it a burst when you just like hold it?
Yeah.
It was great. But yeah, that's kind of how hotels have kind of gave me more passion to get back into what I'm doing today in terms of entertainment and show business.
And what are you doing today?
See, do you like the segue?
Yeah.
Well, the Biz with Jono was born via COVID and
via COVID.
Well, sort of through COVID.
Yeah. So you brainstormed and you incubated this idea of Biz with Jono.
Not to the elaborate style of like anything like this, to the level of this, because there's a lot of hard work that goes into this. Mine was literally just the screen split in two and I had a conversation with someone on Instagram. Yeah. But the Biz with Jono was a radio show on a community station that I started in 2016. Yeah. And then with COVID, I think it was on and off. I then went to Perth and I had a radio show there on a community station, which was cool.
What was Perth like?
I love Perth.
Oh God,
it's great for young families or young people. Sports, the weather's great.
Yeah, I lived there for 9 years.
Oh, I loved it. Where did you live?
I was in Woodvale,
nice.
Up near Wanneroo, Joondalup area.
Oh yeah,
but I didn't have such a great experience.
I was in Palmyra, down by East Frio.
Yeah,
you didn't?
Nah, because look, I grew up overseas. My mum's Indonesian. My dad was Australian, and we were living in Singapore before we moved to Perth. And in Singapore, like I was 14, right?
Yeah.
And I was 6 foot at age 12.
Yeah, you are very tall.
Right. And
I mean, I'm really living up to my surname today when I met Andrew, Smallman.
And when we moved to Perth, like I've got an older sister and a younger brother. I'm the most Asian looking. I was the most Asian looking out of the three of us. And, 6 foot Asian, American accent. I had an American accent because in Singapore you pick up an American accent. Yeah. And, just like racism, like left, right and center. So I didn't really have
the best time. Well, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
They're a bit like that with British people as well. Although there's a lot of British over there.
There's a lot of British.
There are some people that
for the weather.
Yeah. There's some people that are just like, palmy bastard. Like, that kind of thing. Oh, shut up. We're all from there or somewhere, originally. We're not the original landowners of Australia. Cause, we'd look a little bit different, but we're all invaders of somewhere or come from somewhere.
Exactly.
So I really just don't have time for that bullshit. I'm just like, shut up. We're all here for Australia's about diversity, essentially, not to get into politics, but that's why we're all here. That's why we're trying to make a life for ourselves. That's why I came over to follow my family. And, and it's given me a lot of opportunity. And that's what we've been speaking about in terms of like gaining my passion again for entertainment. And, that's really, really opened doors, especially after the tour and all that kind of stuff. And, I found myself like managing an artist here and there or getting them a job. And then through COVID doing the biz, which we were saying. But yes, look, Perth was great for it until it wasn't. And then I had to move back to Melbourne into lockdown because I kind of lost everything in during COVID. Because it's a long story. I'm about to be a permanent resident, but then I wasn't, and so no job keeper, job seeker. So it was a very hard time for me. So I was completely lost. Yeah. So I had to move back to Melbourne, live with my sister. Yeah. My brother was living with my parents. There was no room there. So I had to kind of reestablish myself. And I took a huge knock to my confidence, to, you know, even being involved in the entertainment industry. And the entertainment industry was the hardest hit as well. So I felt like I was on that level as well.
Well, it was a massive reset, right?
It was a huge reset.
We weren't allowed to go out anywhere, and everyone had to think of ways on how to divert to online.
Yeah.
But like the music industry was really
Massively impacted.
it was massively impacted. But pre-COVID, I think it really did rely on like your live music events.
Yeah.
You know, your festivals and your concerts and all that. And if you couldn't do that, then if you were a small fish in a big pond, you didn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
If you were a big fish in a big pond, then you could at least, you know.
Sorry, I'm just thinking of the dance move. Big fish, small fish. Is it big fish, small fish, cardboard box? I don't know how it goes.
I have no
we used to do that in the back in the day. Anyway.
So yeah, if you were big enough, like you could survive through that COVID period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I found myself here.
So you moved back here and you stayed with your sister just to kind of like
Survive.
Yeah.
So look, you know, everyone's got their own story. But you know, chatting about, you know, my experience today, it was you know, it was very, very hard. You know, I had to change my visa and all that kind of stuff, and I couldn't earn any money.
Life admin.
Like it was awful. And so actually I did get to a point where I had some lights, not as big as this, but like, you know, I had like a curtain, and I had like the music, like it was a bit more of a set in terms of like my sister and brother-in-law would go outside or, you know, have a drink. We didn't have my niece at the time, and I'd be doing my live. And so it got to a point where I was starting to reach out to like the guys from S Club or these people around the world that I wanted to interview. And I got some really great interview, like people that I wanted to interview. And I think I interviewed, most of it's gone now because I kind of just got rid of, sometimes you have to get rid of some content that's a bit old.
Yeah.
But I interviewed about, I would say, over 2,000 artists from around the world.
Wow.
During sort of a few year period. And they were all independent artists. Some of them were famous. You know, I had a day, it was a bit wanky, but it was called the Jono and Friends. And it was literally, I stayed on my sofa in front of a camera with the lights for about, I don't know, 8-9 hours. Yeah, and I would costume change, have a glass of water, costume change, have a quick nibble, and then go live to South Africa where we're chatting with Kevin Richardson, the Lion Whisperer.
Yeah.
And then we'd be going straight over to England. We'd be chatting to Bradley from S Club. Then we were chatting to, you know, someone else in another country. I think we went to almost every country.
This was at your sister's house.
Yeah, well, it was just before. It was just as COVID had started, but it carried on through that. You know, then I'm, you know, finding that we had RuPaul's Drag Race girls coming on, and they were getting wind of it, and they wanted to come on and have a chat and a conversation about doing drag in lockdown and stuff like. So there's no, like, it's all entertainment, you know, whether it's drag or ballet or hip hop and R&B. I love every aspect of it because to me, it's something I would pay and go and watch. Like it's a show, it's showbiz, and that's what the biz is about. It's showbiz. But it kind of focused more on independent artists during lockdown, and I sort of not focused on the big celebrities anymore, and or trying to even bother with them. I was actually really enjoying building my catalog of songs with independent artists from all over the world. And when I got some great ones here in Australia, like WA or Adelaide, I loved it. And that was then kind of where the idea came from for my event, which is called Exposure. It wasn't always called Exposure. I think it started off as Bizopolis.
Bizopolis.
Yeah, it's a play on the biz, but like an acropolis, like a city or a gathering of people. And I just thought,
I think Exposure is much better.
Yeah, it sounds Greek, but it also is a bit for people that go like they couldn't say it.
It's like mouth, like vocal vomit.
Yeah, and so I don't know where it came from. I'm actually really surprised that it's very simple, but Exposure, it says everything it does on the tin, and you know, even to brand it with a large X, like that was where the cogs started turning again for me, and the juices started flowing, and the excitement and the passion for music and entertainment again started going.
And the X is really about trying to identify independent artists that have like an X factor.
Correct.
an
Yeah.
X element to it.
Yep. Yeah. Like, I'm not like, I love that we've got people that look up to Ariana Grande or Tove Lo or people like that,
Yeah.
but we've got those people. So I'm looking for something that's really going to be different, or
Yeah.
someone that's just themselves.
Yeah.
And they might look up to Ariana Grande. Like I just had Marie Marmalis, which I think you should get Marie on as well.
Yeah.
Marie's a beautiful young lady. She did really well on The Voice, and her voice is sensational. And she looks up to Ariana, but she's got her own style. And I talk about independent artists like this, because I'm so passionate, and it's just, she was great, and The Voice was amazing, and her voice was amazing, not the show. But it's not all about those TV shows, and this is why I like the event exposure. What it does is bring people like you and I in the industry together, but it also creates exposure for you or me, for the artist. There's people that are producers that own recording studios. So people are going to get something reciprocal out of it, like an interview or someone paid to use the studios, or, there's media outlets, there's tour managers, there's promoters. And we actually have started now getting the eyes of the production crew at The Voice. And they came down, they sent one of their talent scouts down, who's also a very well-known local musician called Gary Pinto. But so Gary came down and was there in capacity of or for The Voice, which was great because the artists, they knew there was a lot of people out in the audience, but there was also artists in the audience. So it's a very mixed bag of people. Yeah, this was born out of that Bizzopolis. That first event I had was like 30 people, and we couldn't dance. There's a couple of speakers, there's a few performers. We couldn't dance, so we kind of like stood up and like moved on the spot. It was like really weird.
Like bananas in pajamas.
But then we could go to the bar and drink.
Yeah.
Like, it's like we're drinking with each other, so why can't we dance? Like, anyway, don't get me started, Daniel Andrews. Anyway, but then exposure, so it's the sixth one I've just produced, and now as I'm doing them, I do it with a couple of people that are in my team.
Yeah.
With PR and media for Fine Tune PR. Hi, Ellie, and then Hazel Ray, who's a fantastic artist as well. But it just sort of gets bigger, and we've got the seventh one that's going to be happening some point next year. I've just got to lock in some dates and a venue, but then we're also doing another one, and I can give you an exclusive. No, people have guessed. Like, people that were there at the night know where it's going to be, but
Macy Gray.
no.
Hilltop Hoods.
We're going to be doing one in South Australia, but I am looking to get a VIP speaker.
Yeah.
And so I will let you know when that happens. You'll be one of
That's
the first
cool.
to know. So
That's
we
cool.
will have that kind of caliber of a speaker coming through.
Yeah.
But it's not all about that. But if someone's in town and they can make it, great.
Yeah.
And we won't always advertise that either. You just never know who's going to be there. Someone could rock up knowing that we have these connections in the industry. They're invited, and they can come along at any point. We had Katie Underwood on the panel.
I think that's actually a really cool.
It's underground
component to it. You know,
it's kind of like a bit like you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. It feels you described it perfectly then. It feels underground.
Yeah.
Like it's not like mass produced or, in the limelight with all this money and power kind of like filtering down to it. It's kind of like homegrown,
It's correct.
finding independent artists and connecting them with other people in the industry and all
using
of that.
what I'm good, like I'm great at, is connecting, and I want to see those people flourish. And it's a lot of people are very appreciative. Some people aren't, and that's where it kind of starts. I have to keep telling myself, don't be so vocal. Don't take that personally. Don't be rude. Because you get the odd one that think they're already at a level and they're not. And I've seen some diva behavior. I've seen some just blatant rudeness. And it's like, I'm self-funding this. This is all self-funded. I don't get any grants. I don't get any extra money from anywhere. I'm putting this on purely because I believe in you as an artist, or I enjoy music so much that I've actually, and as you might know, Melbourne's quite a tight-knit scene, and Australia, in a way, they recycle the same artists or people in musical theatre all the time. I love, what's her name? Casey Donovan, Rob Mills, Todd McKinney. But are there any more people out there in musical theatre than those three people? Rhonda Birchmore, great. Woo-hoo. There is more talent out there. You just need to give people the opportunity. And that is what exposure's about. And it's not just one genre of music. We had this wonderful young lady called Katrina, and she's an opera singer. She came down and like my mom came to that one and my mom cried. She's like, this girl is so talented. And Katrina came on, but then straight after her, we had a hip hop artist, by Neek, the name of Neek. Neek's doing some great things. It kind of is chalk and cheese, but it just works. And people are like, this is so cool. And actually Neek is working with some of the artists that he met there and he's collaborating, which is great. But all I ask for, and I'm going to make a plea here as well, is just, sort of let me know, give me the recognition. It's not something that give me the recognition. It's just like, I want people to know that happened via exposure. And that means it's a recommendation. That means it's all worth it. And I can see this happening and it's great. But when they don't let me know and they start, I'm like, didn't you meet at exposure? And they don't give you that kind of recognition. It's not that I need the recognition. I just want other people to see that, to know that exposure is working. And it's more of a recommendation. And it's not a shameful thing to ask for recommendations. I do it on my LinkedIn with clients and people like, hey, give us a recommendation if you really enjoyed what I did there. Please let me know. Let's make that public. And that's all I would ask.
I think it is an interesting aspect, this like through word of mouth, like people will take advice or recommendations through word of mouth, but then actually recognizing the word of mouth is another aspect that they forget that they have to do.
Yep.
And like
that's all it is. It's a tag, it's a mention. It's nothing that's really, and it's a very hard road to get to the top.
Yeah.
It's very lonely, but just remember those people that helped you or put that platform together.
Yeah.
And I always say that with people I interviewed on the beers or whatever. I'd be like, don't forget me when you're touring. Don't forget the balding middle-aged man on the front row. That'll be me. And they laugh. But like, it's like, no, but seriously, like, I want to be at the gig. Come on. Don't forget those people that genuinely are supporting you because they have a passion. Don't listen to gossip or hearsay. And there has been some of that. And I've kind of had to deal with it on the fly. I don't pay the performers to attend because they're going to get the exposure. They're getting asked to do other gigs from it. Some of them have gone on to work at a nightclub at the Crown. Some of them have been performing at John Cain Arena singing the national anthem because they met the person there.
Yeah.
That's the right person. So that's fine. They've got paid work out of it.
Yeah.
Someone was signed by a record label.
Yeah.
It's happened. So what I do is give people a kickback.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. You only have to sell a ticket. And let's just say you were an artist, Andrew, at Exposure. Your ticket code would be Andrew. Simple, right? No. It's like, we kind of have to like, it's for people of all levels. So they get used to sort of self-promotion. They get used to a media campaign. And with Ellie at Fine Tune PR, she talks about EPK. I can't say it now because my EPKs and things like that. And all the stuff that they would need to know as an artist and, schedules and all this kind of stuff. Even I send them advice or, it's different, but like looking after your vocals and the lead up to the event, getting plenty of rest, making sure you're having 8 hours a day of sleep or trying to rest where you can, making sure that they're as healthy as they can be. But, we ask people to put a code out there. And if your fans and friends want to come and see you at a gig with another 8 artists, where else can you see all these different genres of artists together? Support local homegrown talent, independent artists for what? I mean, with the ticket prices have been less than $50 recently. And they get $10 for every ticket they sell under their code. And that's how I can try and give back to them until I start to make a budget, if you like.
I think that's the key element, right?
Yeah.
Like supporting local artists.
Yeah.
And where can you go that allows you to see so many different artists in the same location and have the opportunity to meet other industry people to be able to generate other opportunities later on down the line.
Correct.
Like what a freaking amazing idea.
And I've got to say, I mean, they've all been great events. They've been great. But the last one was just mind-blowing. That every single performer was well-oiled. There was no issue with them. There was no drama. They all knew where they had to be. They all took part in everything. They supported one another. They communicated clearly with me. And I think Katie Underwood said to me, and Katie Underwood obviously has been in the industry for a very long time. And that's not saying she's old, because Katie, I think you're lovely. You're not old. I'm just saying she's experienced. Like she knows, she just knows a lot. And she said to me, the level of communication you had for this event was off the chart. She said, I've never known it. Like everyone knew what they were doing because of the communication that we had going.
Communication is key.
Isn't it? So yeah, like that's where we're kind of at now. I'm working on 2 events, like I said, Melbourne and Adelaide for next year. Yes, then, you know, peppering it with maybe a VIP guest here and there. If they don't come, they don't come. But I've got a panel that I'm getting together as well that I'm excited about, and it's a year away, but it's already sort of the cogs are already turning. And it's kind of basically like my own mini. It's not about me, but it's a mini concert where like I've said before, I love all genres of music, pop, hip hop, all that kind of stuff, and I hand select a lot of the artists. But this year it's changing. So we're going to have an audition process as well that other people want to be involved in. There might even be like a vocal coach aspect to it. There might even be some choreography. I don't even know, but or at least movement. But there are a few acts that have kind of been picked. And I also pick some that have performed maybe 2 or 3 events ago. It's like an all-star coming back. And let's see how they've grown as an artist since we last saw them. So there's that person that's coming back in the next one. There's a rock band that are going to be there, and they're an established rock band, but right after them, there could be an artist from a completely different genre. And so it's kind of like I've created this thing. It's my own little concept because the industry in Melbourne, especially and Australia, is, like I said, very hard to crack. People are very tight and they don't want to know you if you're not established here.
Yeah.
And I have a wealth of experience and knowledge and performance background. And, just because I'm not doing it professionally here, it doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing. And so I've created this event. I'm really passionate about it and the people that perform.
You'll only ever, what's the saying? You'll only ever meet, you'll never meet a hater that's doing less than you.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that.
So all your supporters,
yeah,
just want to see you thrive.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I think the aspect around identifying homegrown independent artists, creators, and giving them a platform to meet other people and promote themselves, I think is fantastic.
Thank you.
I've already said it, but Australia is a small, big island, and we're so isolated from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And probably the reason why, you mentioned it a while ago, the reason why we recycle all the same talent is because there's no new talent,
I know.
I mean, I've often thought and have had discussions with close friends about how, how do people get really big? Well, they get really big because they leave Australia.
Yeah.
They go somewhere else because we only got 24 million people here, 25 million people, right? In the whole country.
Wow.
New York has 26 million.
In just New York.
That's
York. Insane.
And so Hugh Jackman, right? He was doing theatre.
Yep.
Before he got his Wolverine role.
Dude, I love
And then he did Wolverine, and now he's like the Wolverine guy,
the Wolverine guy.
But he still does singing and dancing and stuff like that.
He's
right?
amazing.
And who's another person? Chris Hemsworth.
Oh.
Home and Away. Now he's Thor.
Do you know that that's what gets me a little bit these days is that people want to get into acting to go on a show like Home and Away or Neighbours because they just want to be famous. It's not about the acting or the art form. It's like they want lip fillers. They want they want the whole experience. They want the red carpet and all that kind of stuff. It's not about that. Because when I started in acting, it was because I just loved to be on stage. I loved that feeling it gave you that, and theatre to camera is obviously very different, but it's it is like the smell of the being side of stage, the pyrotechnics or the dry ice machine or whatever show you're in. Or I did panto as well, back in England, which is a tradition at Christmas. But it's done for a different reason because they see the Holly Valance or Chris Hemsworth or the Hemsworth brothers. They've done really well. Or Kylie Minogue did really well on that show. So it's that's their that's their goal. It's not, like I said, it's not all about that. It's not all about being on Australia's Got Talent or The Voice. It's a great platform to give you another level up.
Yeah.
But I would much rather just go to see you at a gig and you just really love what you're doing and sell it to me, rather than go and see someone that was on The Voice. I'd rather see someone that is passionate about what they do and perform.
Authentic and true to themselves.
And a lot of people ask me, well, you're not a performer. You're like someone, I won't say what someone called me once, but it's kind of like Simon Cowell, you know, recognizes talent. I'd like to I'm not saying I'm Simon Cowell, but like, I'd love to have his money, don't get me wrong. But like, you know, I see what he does. Like he sees talent, and I'm not saying that I tried to emulate that. This was merely by accident and via my Instagram channel I just wanted to meet the people that I'd been interviewing that were based in Melbourne. And that's how it came about. But like now it's become this thing, and I get why Simon may have started it years later. But I just haven't performed in a long time. And there's a voice here, and I was actually having vocal lessons up until recently when I actually broke my ankle and they discovered I have sleep apnea. So it all happened at once. I'm really selling myself here, aren't I? My Tinder profile would be great. I've got sleep apnea.
This podcast is not sponsored by Tinder.
God, no, it's awful. It's by Grindr. No, I'm joking. It's not really.
Oh my God.
So like, but there is a performer here, and that may also emerge at a future event as well, where I might incorporate that. But I did tread the boards in between lockdowns. And when I left Perth, I did the Comedy Lounge. So I did stand-up comedy. Oh, yeah. And then I did the International Melbourne Comedy Festival.
I thought about doing stand-up comedy.
You should.
I've been talking to my fiance about me going and doing an improv class.
It's a great starting point. Yeah. Improvisation. I love improv. And there's a lot of it around. And a girl that I interviewed on Instagram, she now runs her own sort of improv classes, or like stand-up for kind of like exposure, but for stand-up. And that's another arm that I'm thinking of. But, you know, she had this character, and I think it was Angel Boss Girl or something like, it's just like, it's really funny. Her name's Sarah Bottolo, by the way. Sarah's amazing. You should get Sarah on. Very passionate about what she believes in, without getting political. But I love and stand by Sarah, and I think she's really, really funny. But like, I saw her and I was like, got to have a chat with her. Like, and she runs something like that as well. So it's like a stand-up kind of comedy thing. I haven't done that for a long time, although when I get up and I MC an event, there is an element of kind of like showmanship or comedy to it.
Yeah, there would have to be.
And I just love that. I love making people laugh. And I, you know, did that recently, the explosion. Someone actually commented, how do you do that? You saw someone pashing in the corner, and you kind of like looked over and kind of interrupted them and made it about like you and the event or whatever. And I was like, well, yeah. Hello. But like, it's just how you just, you know, I love it.
Where did you uncover the fact that you had this skill of being a really good MC?
Again, I would say it's by accident. I think by doing stuff like this, you're speaking publicly a lot. And I was asked to MC my sister's wedding. That's when it started. And that was a very big task for me, a lot of responsibility, and I thought, wow, I've got to do this. I've got to do my little sister proud.
Plus, you didn't want to fuck it up.
Yeah. I had more costume changes than my sister or the band.
What?
Sorry to make it about me, darling. I am a Leo, of course.
Was it like one of those magicians where you kind of like you say something and then
No, it was in between songs. There was a band,
and
the band played like a theme tune for me to come on. We have a family joke about So What, Pink. So I came out to that, and I did the rules and regulations of the evening, then introduced the bridal party and all that kind of stuff. And the band were behind me, and I kind of liked the feeling.
Yeah.
I was like, I like this. And I was making people laugh.
Yeah.
Talking about the rules of, you know, the night and getting up and stuff. And I think the organizer of the wedding, the lady at the venue, wanted me to be at the lectern and only be at the lectern. I was like, darling, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm a performer. I need to be on the band stage with them when it needs to suit me. And I need to free roam with my cordless mic. Just like, oh God. And they actually said, the venue said, we've never had an MC like you. Do you do this professionally? I said, no. They were like, wow, you need to do it. And then I got booked to do another wedding. So I did another wedding. And this was huge this time. It was like Egyptian, Latino, and it was a family member, but it was just like all these people. It was huge. And then I got asked to go and do a festival for a promoter that I'd worked for, and that was 4,000 people. and I was on stage with.
Did you get nervous?
No, I do with small crowds.
Oh.
So like if you come to an exposure, well, that's growing now as well, but like 50 people, it's like they can see you like right there. Like I can see what they're thinking.
I got it. You don't think 4,000 people have two pairs of eyes as well? They can see you as well?
Merges into a sea of eyes. Do you know what I mean? Like stand-up comedy, when I was doing on the stage, like when I was on the thing, you know, that was kind of scary because it's like you're not playing a character. You're not singing a song and delivering. Yes, your voice can go and you might not hit the note or it might break and stuff, but you got to make people laugh. And I saw people bomb, and it was so my bum tightened for them. I was like, oh my god, oh my god. Luckily, my laughs per minute is how it's judged were high, and it happened, and it was bang, 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 bang.
Okay. So I think your comment before about 50 people versus 4,000 people. 50 people can see you. Yeah. It's not necessary. I think it's not necessary. Yeah, it's not necessarily they can see you because 4,000 people can still see you. I think it's you can see them.
Yeah,
you can see them, and you in a group of 50 versus 4,000, you're a lot more aware of the 50 people's reactions or the lack of reaction. So then that just builds on your anxiety, like your performance anxiety and like all of that. Whereas if it's 4,000, you're like, yeah, I'm flamboyant. I'm like doing what I'm doing. And like, I don't give a shit because, you know, if one person doesn't like me, that's 3,999 other people that still do.
Correct. Luckily, though, for me, it went fairly well. It's my first ever stand-up performance, and it's on YouTube somewhere. And I was really nervous to put it up, but I got feedback from people that do professional stand-up. I took away that I use a lot of buzzwords, so I repeat. When I got nervous, there was a word that I would use. I can't remember what it was, but it was like blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, I need to take that out, need to slow down, need to wait a little bit more for a reaction, although, you know, like the timing was good. There was even like, and that's how you get used to emceeing is like, audience reactions, you play on it. You've got to be very quick. Some performers, singers don't have that. And that's part of, again, like exposure. You come in, the crowd reacts, and you have the rapport with the crowd, and you get to know that over time. And the experienced performers watching this will know, or listening, but you get to react. And there was something that happened in the lobby of the Comedy Lounge whilst I was getting to the punchline. It was a very anecdotal kind of, you know, joke teller, tell a story that something's happened to me and make a punchline or whatever. And this whole eruption of laughter just happened in the lobby of the event. I think the staff were laughing or something. And so other people started looking, and I was like, I haven't even got to the fucking punchline yet. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, premature much. Or like, you know, just little things like that just make people smile or laugh out loud. And they all started laughing because then they reacted to the people laughing out there. And then you tell the punchline and it's more of a reaction because then they're like, they were waiting for it more. I've really got to work on my material. I'd love to do it again. I've got to work on my material because since I first did it, we've now got pronouns. We've now got, we're more PC. I think we, you know, and I just wouldn't want to really offend anybody. Like,
do you think we've gone too far?
Not with pronouns. I think I'm sure. Look, as long as everyone's happy and whatever, that's fine. But I just think, especially in Victoria, people are very uptight, and there are some things that people are just overly bothered about, and they shouldn't be. You know, I think there's a lot of. I think trying to hit a quota in terms of we've got to represent this personal culture and that kind of. Sometimes you don't. The story doesn't need that. If that's the story, and that writer has imagined and envisioned that as a story. Doesn't need to be PC anymore. But let's not jump on the bandwagon and say that they're racist because they didn't feature a black person, or they didn't feature a ginger person, or they didn't feature a trans or white person, or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's the story. That's the storyteller's decision to make. We don't have to fit in there. What I don't want though is people to be, you know, it's to be racist or to be, you know, homophobic or transphobic and all that kind of stuff. It's not a. It's. I reckon it's really sort of about the story and where that story's set.
100%. It is always. It should always be about the story and the impact of what the story is trying to tell you, or try to teach you, or try to make you reflect. I think my question before about have we gone too far is I think that sometimes people think a little bit too much about, it's not just about the story, it's about all these other elements and the inclusivity and like all that type of stuff. And I'm all for being inclusive. But again, if it's, if that's what the story is, then that's what the story should be, and we should just take it for what it is,
Like if there was a story about me growing up and there was actors playing me, well, you're not going to pick someone of a different color of skin to play me, because that's not how I grew up. I grew up with a very diverse, multicultural background, so there would be a lot of actors in it from all sorts of walks of life. 1980s in Birmingham, it was a mixture. I think I was probably one of the only white people in my class. So, but if the story's about me and my family, you wouldn't want to just include a character, or even if it was a fictional story, whatever, about just to be, just to tick a box. And that's where I think we've gone too far, is we have to tick a box to make that person happy or that community happy. We don't have to, because it's a point of view about a story from that person's point of view. Just as long as it doesn't sort of go down a road where we're saying something that we shouldn't be saying, or if it's part of the story, fine. But let's not be racist, or let's not be like your experience in Perth or anything like that. I think that's where we've gone too far, in terms of like, we don't need to tick all the boxes to please someone. We don't have to please everybody all the time, is kind of what I'm saying. But we just have to be very careful how we deliver the story as well.
Yeah, and sometimes the story doesn't. The story didn't have that element to it. Yeah. So therefore, like, why try to change the storyline?
To be fair, if it was a story of my life, it would have every fucking thing in it, to be fair. Like,
same.
The cast of thousands, it would just be like, there'd be all sorts of colors and races and genders in my story, because that's the kind of life I've had. It's been very varied and mixed. So I ended up emceeing, and that's via comedy, via the beers and all that kind of stuff. And the 4,000 people was, I told you I digress. The 4,000 people was the pinnacle. I was like, yeah, this is great.
So that was a music festival?
Yeah, it was Taylor Dane. There was...
oh, shit.
Yeah, huge.
I used to listen to her cassette tape on the school bus in Singapore.
She is stunning. Like, she is still beautiful. Like,
that's
just insane. School, there was a lot. We had John Paul Young. Yeah. We had Paul Young. It's all the Paul Youngs and John Paul Youngs. There was Taylor Dane. There was Cutting Crew. There was all these huge 80s acts that I hadn't met on. I did the other 80s tour, but these were all the icons that I'd met. I was like, bloody hell. So I was just going on there, and it's a winery. So it's Hope Estate, I think, in New South Wales.
Right.
Hope Estate, are you ready for your next 80s act? And you just get them all roaring. And it's kind of a bit panto again in a way, but it's just like, I don't think they heard you. You need to raise that imaginary roof. Come on, everybody. Like, please give it up for Taylor Day. Like, and just a little bit of a nugget, and they just go crazy. I loved it. I'm a showman, a showman that can perform.
Yeah.
I have a voice. I can sing.
Yeah.
It's just that I have not the talent, like my father has talent, to write a song. How do these people create them? I'm sure if I really thought about it, it's like writing a comedy routine. You start writing words, and however it comes to you, everyone's process is different. But an artist, in terms of a singer-songwriter, that's something that I'm not. I wouldn't say I am, but I'm a creative performer.
You're a creative, yeah.
Yeah, like I fit into a few different boxes. I feel that I've had a good stand-up comedy. Used to dance. I actually danced at a nightclub. I forgot that one. We'll have to talk about that another time. But I danced professionally as a dancer in a nightclub back in my day. I've been an actor. It's insane.
A go-go dancer
not a go-go dancer
on the podium.
I was on a podium, but it wasn't like the go-go dancers you see in West Hollywood, where they got just a pair of shorts on and they've got abs out. Because I didn't really have abs. I just had a very slim body at the time. It wasn't abbed, but we had like costumes on, or like dance sweat. It was to all sorts of music.
Yeah,
like Lady Mojo, like Lady, that one. Would just be dancing on the podium, just getting the crowds going in the nightclub.
Yeah.
We had bouncers on our podiums, and you do all these moves. And I once did this move where my fist came across the podium and I smacked the bouncer in the face. And I was
by accident.
I was like, by accident. I was like, oh my God, please. And he just looked at me and he kind of went. Shit, that was like a full-on punch to his face, and he was just like, "Yo," and there was this lovely guy that came through that's when you could smoke in nightclubs, and I just saw this I just saw this orange fag butt, this light, come to what we call, some of us still call cigarettes fags, by the way. That wasn't, not me being racist, being the biggest homosexual of them all. But anyway, not racist, homophobic, cigarette butt. Let's just go back to that. You can edit that bit out. The cigarette butt coming up, and there was this guy attached to it. And I was like, oh my God, like this big, huge, straight dude. It's like, man, you can move. Like, I've been watching, you really.
So he said that to you?
Yeah, and I was like, wow, okay. And it was a straight club. It was like a club.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cheers, mate. Like, thanks. Like, and he's like, nah, you're great. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That was just like in his own little way. He was probably very drunk, but he just really loved what I was doing.
Yeah, like recognition. Everybody loves some recognition.
Yeah. So,
wow, like you've just lived so many different lives and you've done so much different stuff.
this is what people say. When I meet them, they go, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I know where I want to be. It's just trying to get there.
Where do you want to be?
I want the exposure to keep going.
Yes.
I want that to be a more full-time gig. I'm loving my full-time job at the moment, but, I think the exposure thing is growing and growing and growing. And I think there's expansion there. It could be all around Australia. It could even go further. It was kind of compared once to like big sound, but with countdown, a countdown element to it, which I think is very complimentary. I would never not take that as a compliment. Not that I want to be big sound, because like you said before, it's more underground. It's more rustic. It's kind of like you don't know who's going to be there. I like that vibe. And that's what I always say to the artists. So I want to continue with that. I do also want to get back and having vocal lessons, because I still have a voice. I'm only in my early 40s. So when I get back to a point, I want to do some sort of performance. I don't know what or how yet. But I envision, even just if I go into a studio somewhere and just have a camera and also do sort of like a behind the scenes me of recording a few songs, not my own songs. It would be a couple of musical theater songs, maybe a pop song, just so I can capture that moment. So when I am old or I'm dead and gone, that, I knew I did this. I can do this. I've done this. I've done it. I can prove to people out there. And it's not about proving to people out there. It's proving to myself that I can still do it, and I getting that confidence back.
Yeah.
But also when people do ask the question, what do you do? Well, I can do this as well. And I'm not just that person.
I love the fact that, like you've mentioned, like you're in your early 40s, but age is just a number.
It is.
And you should feel like you could start something new at any stage.
Yes.
Like it shouldn't be a hindrance.
Well, I'm only in my early 40s, and people started a career in acting. I think, was it Alan Dale that was in Neighbours? He started in his 40s, and then he went on to be an Ugly Betty, and like he became this great actor in his 40s, and other people did that within music, and I still see people dancing in their 60s.
Yeah.
So, my dancing days are over, but I can still move. I want to go to a dance class potentially, but there's always something going on in my mind, and I think after COVID, it did take a huge knock to the confidence, but also because I didn't feel like I belonged in Australia.
Yeah.
And all my family does. They're all Australian citizens.
Yeah.
So I was like, did I make a mistake? I can't now go back to England because I'm now a stranger in that country, because I've lived outside of there for so long. So I'm kind of in limbo. And I've kind of spent the last few years trying to shake that off and gone through a lot of and look, I always say mental health is very important. And this is what exposure is about as well. It's come together, have a conversation about it. Let's just chat. I know people are going through things. That's why I invite them. I'm like, come down. And I'll push on them. Come down. And I know some of the performers do. And they, and I'm like, that's why I want you to come down and just be in the room. And often they tell me after, like, thank you. I really got to chat to people that I needed just to get out of the house and have a conversation with. And I actually had one artist, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying, I won't name this person, but he kind of fell out of love with music and was on The Voice. And he did his exposure when he performed at, I think it was the last two ago. So it was the third one before. Anyway, he said, thank you. He said, I feel like I've fallen in love with music again, and this is because of exposure. And when I was saying before, that's all I need to hear is that recognition. He didn't need to plaster that all over social media, but he came to me and he gave me that feedback, that recommendation, that story, and that's what it's about. So look, I went through all that kind of mental health stuff, and we don't always talk about it. I don't talk about it actively on social media or anything like that. But there was a time when my confidence was not. I think I've got a very sort of TEFL or resilience to me now, with things that I just keep going, and I have to keep going. And this is why I put my energy into doing exposure. Got to keep going. Forget all the stuff that happened with visas and COVID. It's in the past. Yes, it still exists, but with any luck, we're not going to have that kind of thing again in our lifetime. And it's just kind of getting over my own mental blocks, I think, and exposure is a part of that. So that's why I see exposure going forward. It's going to happen.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like it's something that's definitely going to go a lot further.
Thank you.
Like just by having you here, sitting down, talking about everything that we've spoken about, like you have this drive and energy that if you put your mind to something, you put like 1,000% into
I
it.
do.
And like with the ability to build relationships really quickly and like have this vision of what you're trying to achieve and like giving the opportunity for these independent artists and things like that. Like I think it's just, I've never seen anything like it.
That's what I like to hear. Thank you. I know. Yeah.
Which is, I think, like, so I mentioned like when we first started that I was a photographer for 11 years.
Yes.
And I put myself online a lot of the time, and I would always like tell people, like you need to put yourself online. You need to like show a little bit of your personality and all this type of stuff. And then I wanted to pivot, and I started interviewing people, and then I started this podcast, and I just feel like the ability to storytell, the ability to push the focus back on the guests. I'm giving back to the community because I'm like allowing you to tell your story and have people relate to your story and, learn about you and learn about everything that you're doing. And that's like me kind of recognizing my skill because I've got this capability
this is insane.
Just allowing it to like just flow.
I know. I'm really grateful. When you asked me, that's why I was saying, look, I'm not a singer-songwriter or an artist. And the people that you've had on, like Cami recently, I love Cami Cole, and I watch and I listen, and they've got a story from a different angle, I guess. Very similar, but everyone's story is different. But being for me, I'm literally not an artist. But that will change. I'm a performer. I'm not a singer-songwriter. And I think I've created a platform, and eventually there might be a time where, so exposure is, the Biz Presents is the promoter. Exposure is that live music independent networking event. But it could be the Biz Presents, and then there's a stand-up comedy version. The Biz Presents, and then there's a musical theater version. So exposure is just one event of a few that I'm trying to. So,
That's
to create,
so cool.
I know, thank you. But so exposure is going to be happening in South Australia, Melbourne continually.
Yeah.
Trialing it next year as well in Adelaide. South Australia's still got a few artists lined up, but then there could be a stand-up comedy one. So all I've got to do really is come on, open, say a few lines, maybe roast someone, and then or maybe give some feedback from what I've seen on TV that week. I don't know. And then just bring a stand-up comedy on, a stand-up comedian on, and it kind of be like a raw talent showcase of the comedians. But it's got another element to it. And the musical theater thing, it would just be, there's no networking or anything, nor with the comedy one, but the musical theater thing, it would be, I'm the host, I MC it, it's my event. It's all about me. No, I'm joking. You know what I mean? But like, it's otherwise, people don't get the understanding of why I'm doing it. But like, you come on, you do the welcome to the night of musical magic or whatever. We've got some great acts for you tonight, But before that, I've just sang, be our guest, or I don't know, something like that from Disney. And then bring out a couple of other artists that do musical theater and add to that, and then you just don't know who's coming to that and watching that, and then just having a bit of a crossover, but really keeping those pillars separately. So comedy, musical theater, and being an independent artist, singer-songwriter. So that's kind of what I envisage for the future.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I can't wait to hear these announcements for next year's events.
Andrew.
I'll definitely come to the.
You
Melbourne
are
one.
already on there. You're on the guest list.
And thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
It's been an absolute wonderful experience. I could chat to you all day. Obviously, people can tell. I could just sit and chat with you. We should just have beer and coffee, beer, both probably. Let's have both.
Coffee for sure. I don't drink.
Well, a long black
Because of my Asian heritage.
What the hell?
I get the Asian flush.
Do you? Well, I've got Irish heritage, so obviously I can drink. So that's probably well.
Yeah.
But no coffee. I feel like I could sit here all day with you and your cats, and your fiance upstairs. But no, I've had the wonderful time today, and I feel very honoured. So thank you for asking me to come on.
Fantastic. Let me just take a quick selfie and. Amazing.
It's so cool. Thank you,
Jono,
Andrew,
for coming along. Thanks everyone for listening in. Make sure you hit subscribe and that notification bell, and I'll catch you guys all in the next one. See ya.